be kept open on AB 111. Colleagues, returning to AB 110, which we had passed, we had a full debate on the payment in lieu of tax. I'm going to ask for a motion to move the trailer bill to the floor as is, but I am certain that Ms. Bosler has heard our concerns. This is not an issue that is going away. We have to deal both with the backlog. We also need to be reconsidering, or well, it's a little more nuanced than that. We've heard your intent for the budget year and for potentially the year after that. You're trying to be cautious and fiscally very conservative here. I get that as well. But just to recognize that the issue does not go away, but I will be recommending an aye vote on the trailer bill as is. Senator Wolk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the airing of the issue and the time that was spent there. I don't agree with the direction on this issue, but there's a lot in the resources bill that's extremely important, and I will be voting for the motion because I do want to see the resources trailer bill move forward. I have a procedural question only. Can that item be separated out for a vote?
One moment, please.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the only way to do that would be to actually amend the section out, section 1 out of the bill, and then take two different votes. That is, I'm going to recommend against that. Anyone can make any motion. I would not deny anyone a motion, but if there were such one, I would recommend defeating the motion.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Move forward.
All right, so we have a motion by Senator Monning. This is on the resources trailer bill, AB 110. Did you want a final comment? Senator Nielsen, before we take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your indulgence, so we've been able to at least examine the issue. I have to be a no vote on this. I can't buy the whole pig in a poke. It's been going too long. The promises are too hollow. It's time for government to keep its word with the people of the state of California, and that includes our counties, so I'll just be a no vote.
I understand. Thank you, Senator. Call the roll, please.
Leno?
Aye.
Leno, aye. Nielsen?
No.
Nielsen, no. Allen? Allen, aye. Anderson? Anderson, no. Bell? Bell, aye. Block? Block, aye. Hancock?
Aye.
Hancock, aye. Mitchell? Mitchell, aye. Monning?
Aye.
Monning, aye. Morlock? Morlock, no. Wynn? Wynn, no. Pan? Pan, aye. Pavley? Pavley, aye. Roth? Stone? Stone, no. Wolk? Wolk, aye.
The vote is 10-5. Did we have an abstention, or are we missing a member right now? Okay, we did have an abstention. Okay, so we will close the roll on the resources bill, AB 110. Final vote is 10-5. And then I think you had told me the vote was 9-5 on AB 111. If you could call the absent member, I just want to see who's in the room and if we can close it out.
Bell? Bell, aye. Mitchell? Aye. Mitchell, aye.
11-5. That is a full house, so we can close on AB 111. We will move on to our last four trailer bills, colleagues. We're at AB 112, which is public safety.
This is the public safety omnibus trailer bill that represents a compromise between the administration and the legislature. Part of this budget, part of this bill includes the authorization of an 18-month amnesty program for individuals with past due court-ordered debt owed prior to January 1, 2013, related to traffic infractions. This legislation also requires that the administration submit a comprehensive plan to the legislature as part of the 16-17 governor's budget that will include a permanent solution for the infrastructure at the California Rehabilitation Center. That was quite a lot of conversation during conference about that specific prison and its dilapidated state. Also, in this bill includes an updated new formula for SB 678, which has been an important funding stream for local probation departments, and it's tied to efforts to reduce the number of offenders that are sent to state prison. And then finally, there's also a provision that eliminates the sunset date on a program that's been very important to the state in terms of addressing its incompetent to stand trial population, and that's the restoration of competency program that we're working with many local sheriffs to run in their local county jails, as opposed to sending those offenders into the state mental hospitals for restoration of competency. So those are just a few of the provisions, the most substantive ones that I'll highlight.
Thank you, Ms. Bosler. I want to touch on just a couple of these, which have, well, the first one in particular, touch many millions of Californians, and that is the debt amnesty program. Colleagues, you probably read some news reports over the past recent months that there have been over 4 million Californians who have lost their driver's licenses as a result of an inability to pay what start off as very minor traffic fines with then assessments that are about 4 times the expense of the fine itself. And it can double very quickly if it's not paid in a very timely fashion, and then licenses have been revoked, which of course makes it only more difficult for someone to get to work and be able to get out of the arrears. So the governor had proposed initially an amnesty program, which then took on greater proportion. I also want to credit Senator Hertzberg with taking this on in the form of a bill. And if you could help us just reveal some of the details of it. My understanding is anyone who is in arrears, irrespective of any means testing, would be able to come forward to pay, I think it's 50% minimally, and then for those who are of lesser means, there are some other provisions, and then if you could also talk about how the opportunity to restore one's driver's license is a part of this.
Thank you, Senator. Brendan Murphy again from Department of Finance. The means test, there is no means test to get in the door. So anybody with outstanding debt prior to, the means test really is on the date of the outstanding delinquent debt, actually. So prior to October 1, or prior to January 1, 2013. And so if you have that debt on the books, you can come in, anybody is allowed, and that's the 50% threshold at that point. We did set some stringent criteria for what you have to leave behind to attempt to ensure payment. There's also so there's 2 parts. There, you could pay your 50% immediately at that point in time, or you could sign up for a payment plan, which is a new facet of this amnesty proposal from the past. In the payment plan option, we set some stringent criteria about proof of who you are and where you're employed, et cetera, to ensure payment in full, one way or the other. In addition to that, though, the moment you sign up, that record of participation in the amnesty plan will allow you to go to DMV and get your license reinstated, no matter who you are, as long as that's the only reason that failure to appear or failure to pay. Should have been more clear about that. In addition to that, as you mentioned, there is now some provided, an additional layer of provided benefit, hopefully, to the lowest socioeconomic status. People on public assistance programs are within that 125% limit of the current poverty level. And the hope there is that their debt would actually, they come in and can certify that they're on those programs or at that economic level. They can then remove 80% of the debt and also get their license back at that point in time. So the hope there being that we cast as wide a net as possible. The goal here is there's approximately $2 billion in outstanding traffic debt on the books. And at this point in time, we would love to get as many people as we can into the program, driving legally, working legally, and hopefully, paying their other bills and any other outstanding debt as quickly as possible.
Sure. No, it does sound like a win-win for all of us. And then how does this interplay with AB 60, which allows for undocumented individuals in California to be able to get trained, tested, insured, and licensed in California?
So we added there's a provision that's been added quite frankly, with the help of your staff, to make sure that we don't miss anybody is the attempt here. So people who didn't have a license before that are AB60, otherwise AB60 eligible, have been told because of their possibility of having outstanding debt from not having the license before and, quite frankly, inability to pay, they're not eligible now. They would otherwise be eligible. They will be eligible for the program, both the amnesty program and to receive the license if they come in, sign up for the amnesty program, and take advantage of it. Just like getting your license cleared of your FTA, failure to appear, failure to pay, they would have the same provisions under AB 60 and be allowed to move forward with that process at that point.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. And thanks to the governor for taking that next step in addressing the fact that 4 million Californians have lost their license and need a way to be able to reclaim it as they also attend to the arrears that they've accumulated with regard to this debt. The other point I wanted to ask you a few questions about, because we did have full discussions in the conference committee with regard to the closure of the California Rehabilitation Center at Norco. We had talked about the promise of closing the facility, that there are potentially over $1 billion in improvements that will be necessary to make if it is to remain open, that there are significant cost savings. We had some disagreements as to whether we could meet the court requirement of reducing our population to 137.5 of capacity with the closure. If you could talk to us a little bit about how, where we landed in the compromise with regard to this facility.
Josh Gauger, Department of Finance. So the compromise language requires CDCR and the Department of Finance to develop a comprehensive plan, an updated comprehensive plan over the summer and with the release of the governor's budget next year that, among other things, addresses the decaying infrastructure at CRC and provides a permanent solution. As you mentioned, we've identified in previous reports in the blueprint and the Senate Bill 105 report that we understand the problems that exist at CRC, and we intend to come forward with a plan to address those. The compromise language also includes legislative findings and declarations that the legislature believes that the CRC can be closed without jeopardizing compliance with the 3-judge panel population cap without further building being necessary.
All right, thank you, sir. Before I call upon Senator Hancock, I just want to say, Senator, thank you for your and your staff's focus on so many of the important issues that are ripe for discussion at the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, and all of our collective efforts in rehabilitating the system and working to help rehabilitate those who come out of the system. You've done great work this year.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I would say thank you absolutely to both the budget staff, who's been fantastic, the policy staff who've helped, and the administration. I think we've come up with a very good set of things that will move corrections forward in this state so that someday we may have the leadership role in that arena that we have in so many others. I would just, I have a question about the facilities report that will be made, because my understanding from just reading the language was that it would be both directly related to the closing of the California Rehabilitation Center at Norco, but also in the context of an overall facilities evaluation. And I say that because members of the legislature have been very concerned about cutting back the very large percentage of our budget that goes to corrections so we could reinvest the money in other ways that have been talked about today. And as I learn more about that, it appears that the only real way to cut back on the budget significantly would be to close a facility. And that there are some barriers to that because of the standardized staffing that was adopted a few years ago that requires us to maintain full staffing even if the population goes down. We've been discussing whether that precludes closing a yard in an individual prison, or whether you have to close an entire facility. But the blueprint did promise billions of dollars in savings, which haven't materialized. So do you anticipate that the report that we'll be getting will really discuss population projections and a general status of our facilities?
Yes, we have a lot of work ahead of us for this fall, and that is exactly what we need to do. There has been a lot of transition over the last few years following AB 109, with the passage of Proposition 47, the passage, and then the implementation of many other actions that the three-judge panel has required the state to take. With those, there's been changes to the further changes to the population. We're also in the process of bringing back thousands of inmates have been out of state for many years in private facilities. So there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of moving pieces. It's a significant effort, but we think it's one that it's time to do. And we will look forward to continuing this conversation in January with a new blueprint and some very definitive actions proposed on the California Rehabilitation Center.
Okay. I look forward to that discussion as well, and I would move the bill.
Thank you, Senator Hancock. We do have a motion. We have a number of colleagues who'd like to speak. First, we have Senator Roth, followed by Senators Morlock, Stone, and Nielsen. Senator Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm certainly familiar with CRC and NERCO and have seen decaying infrastructure and I believe I understand the issues associated with that. So I guess what I would ask is, to the extent that the permanent solution that this contemplates ultimately includes some sort of recommendation for closure, that the comprehensive plan that's developed include a rather detailed, what we would call in the military, personnel action plan regarding the displacement of employees there. I'd like to see some thought given to that, and I'd certainly like the legislature to have an opportunity to see what plan the administration has for the folks that have, in many cases, worked for years at that facility. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Roth. Senator Morlock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill also has what's called an extension or prolonging court user fees or enhanced civil fees. And in county land, where I come from, you usually charged a fee that reflected the actual costs of the services that were provided. So we're using this fee as a revenue source, and it came about in the Budget Act of 2012. And it also states in here that it's obviously higher than the actual cost, because in the code it says unless the fee is reduced pursuant to this section. So I'm just sort of concerned that we're extending a fee for another 3 years where there's no correlation as to what it really, that's really just covering the actual costs. So, yeah, I mean, it's just going to the general fund. We're taxing a certain segment of our society, and I'm just having a tough time with that.
Ms. Bosler.
So they definitely do not go to the general fund. They go into the trial court trust fund, and they are for direct support of the trial courts. There was many actions taken during the recession to mitigate some of the impacts of the reduced general fund that was available for all programs across the board, including the state, including the courts. And so there were some fee increases that were made. Those are proposed to be extended for another 3 years. The administration has been committed to restoring funding to the courts. There was a proposal that started last year to provide a 2-year funding stability plan for the trial courts, and we look forward to the outcomes of a task force that the Chief Justice has started to really evaluate ways that the trial courts can do business different to both save money and also increase the access to justice across the state. So these fee extensions are necessary at this time to support the current level of trial court, the current funding level for the trial courts.
So there's no nexus, it's just charged. So why make it temporary? Why don't you just make it permanent?
I think that the temporary nature gives the task force an opportunity to evaluate the fees and whether there has been impacts on access to justice. And so the proposal was to continue the stability for a few more years, but to continue to look at the appropriateness of the level of the fees.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Stone and then Senator Nielsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. With regard to the amnesty program, I certainly understand what we're trying to do here. We have people that didn't pay for their traffic tickets. They had escalations in the fines, and they went to go renew their driver's license, didn't have the money, couldn't get a driver's license, became unemployed. So in essence, we're rewarding those that didn't follow the rules, and we're penalizing those people that did follow the rules. And my concern is that what do we say to those people that are in the low-income stratus that recognize the importance of paying their obligations, recognizing the consequences of their crimes, and may have had to do without food, may have had to do without car insurance. Was there any consideration to look at their economic status on those that paid the bills, paid the tickets, and consider giving them a 50% refund on those tickets to make the process fair?
I think that would be extremely difficult for us to implement practically. I think that this amnesty proposal seeks to strike a balance between fairness and also address a real issue that's been well documented, including has raised the attention of the U.S. Department of Justice as well. About how some of the fees and fines and penalties that can accrue on a very small infraction can be cost prohibitive or very difficult for low-income persons to handle. And from that, there's a bit of a snowball effect that occurs when a license is lost and they're no longer able to get to their job. And so this effort here is temporary. It's 18 months. So it's one time. It's proposed to also right-size some of our programs that are funded with these infractions because there has been a decline in the ability to collect. And so I think that coming to this proposal was really about looking at many different factors and thinking that this was a good time to do an amnesty, which is one time in nature, and try and clear out some of these back debts because we are having a very difficult time right now collecting the debts that are owed.
Thank you.
Thank you for the response, Ms. Bosler. And Senator Stone, I'm sensitive to the issue that you've raised, and I think it's just incumbent in the whole notion of any kind of amnesty. And I know that the Board of Equalization, for example, has had amnesties, I think well-spaced over 10 or 20-year periods. But every once in a while, the state realizes that they're not going to collect any money on some of these outstanding debts. Might we pick up some of it and also get people from out of the shadows? So we've done it with small businesses. We've done it. We're now proposing to do it here. And my guess is, and it's just my guess anecdotally, but I would imagine for those individuals and families who really did have to decide whether to pay the fine and all of the assessments or pay their rent or buy food, they probably paid their rent or bought their food first, and that's why they're in this situation now. Whereas those of us who are a little more fortunate and don't have to make those kinds of choices, we probably will pay our fines and fees and make sure that we stay current. So nothing, wherever you set a threshold line, there's going to be someone close to it who doesn't benefit, and it's unfortunate, but it's just the nature of the situation. I think this is a really great proposal, and to the degree that we get millions of Californians their licenses back, and maybe we pick up a few $100 million at the same time, not a bad deal for everyone. Any other comments from the committee? I did want to touch on just one other thing. This has to do with a bill that I co-authored with then Senator, now Supervisor John Benoit a few years ago. It was referred to as SB 678, or our community corrections, that used one-time ARA funding that was earmarked for public safety to work with our probation officers throughout the state of California to assist them in providing the local programs to keep felony probationers who are doing their time at the county level rather than coming into our state system successful in their probation. To the degree that they could be kept successful in their probation, they did not subsequently fail and make their way into the state prison system at a time when we were so overcrowded. It was a one-time investment of about $40 million. I think within the first year, it returned close to 4 to 1 on the dollar. We kept so many tens of thousands from coming into our state prison system. We saved a couple $100 million, and my memory's a little hazy with regard to the exact numbers now, but I think over the past 3 years, we have saved close to $500 million. You correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Murphy. Am I anywhere close?
I don't have the exact number, but that seems like it would be in the realm of the number.
So now we are that was pre-realignment. We're now post-realignment. The world's changed, and there is a community performance incentive grant formula update, if you could share with us some of the details of it, because it does impact all of our counties.
Right, so the goal of the revised formula is to preserve the past success that you discussed, that probation departments exhibited at reducing the number of individuals sent to state prison from local supervision. It also is designed to encourage probation departments to continue to reduce the number of individuals sent to state prison going forward. So it has two main components. The first component recognizes that past success over the first 4 years of the program. It compares each county's current probation failure rate percentage to the statewide probation failure rate percentage and creates a sliding scale. And based on where each county falls in that sliding scale, they get a certain percentage of their highest ever payment over the first 4 years of the grant program. And that's really designed to build in a little bit of stability into the program, as well as recognize what probation departments did pre-realignment and pre-establishment of a new baseline or eliminating a baseline going forward. And it really will allow probation departments hopefully to be able to commit to some of the ongoing programs and services that were really successful in preventing prison admissions. And building in that stability will allow them to be able to count on a certain percentage of funding year to year, hopefully, but also link it to current performance. The second component is looking year to year, what is the improvement over the number of individuals sent to state prison over the prior year, and it rewards any improvement at 35% of the state's contract bed rate per offender that's avoided.
Great. Thank you for that explanation. This was a great bipartisan effort a few years back, and I take great pride in its success. And going forward, I think we have every opportunity to build upon that success. And we talk a lot about numbers of probationers who succeed rather than fail in their probation and don't come to state prison. We reduce our prison population. We save X number of hundreds of millions of dollars. What should not get lost in all of this discussion is that as this program continues to succeed, we have safer communities. We have less crime. To the degree that a probationer is successful in his or her probation, that means crimes were not committed. So that's really the goal here. And I do want to offer a shout out to the chief probation officers and all of their deputies who have been such great partners in working with us and refining this formula currently, as well as really investing wisely, thoughtfully, and passionately in a real change of attitude, that a probation officer goes to work with the belief that their probationers will succeed, as opposed to shrug their shoulders and say, well, sooner or later they're going to fail. They've done a great job in changing that attitude and bringing us the successful results that they have. So with that, we have some public comment. Mr. Harold, welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mike Carroll with the Western Center on Law and Poverty, and we want to make a couple of remarks about the traffic amnesty program. I think it's been well discussed. We are very supportive of this proposal. As you noted, there are 4 million plus people who have their license suspended right now, and we have to find a way to provide a remedy for these many, many Californians who are caught up in this morass. Right now, there is no legal remedy. And the governor's proposal and the compromise that was worked out through the budget process provides a legal remedy that people can now use and pursue to get their lives back and to allow the state to get some of these fines, fees, and assessments actually paid. And we really want to thank, in particular, the Department of Finance and the governor's office for their work with us over these last several months. They've been very receptive and have listened very well to the concerns that we've raised. And I think we've crafted a really good proposal that I think is going to work well for all. So we just wanted to thank them for that and the staff of the committees who also worked on this.
Thank you, Mr. Harold. We do have a motion by Senator Hancock. If there's no other comment or question from the committee, did I catch you? Senator Roth, did you have one? Feel free. Okay. Call the roll, please.
Leno?
Aye.
Leno, I. Nielsen?
No.
Nielsen, no. Allen? Allen, I. Anderson?
No.
Anderson, no. Bell? Bell, I. Block? Block, I. Hancock? Hancock, I. Mitchell? Monning? Monning, I. Morlock? Morlock, I. Wynn? Wynn, no. Pan? Pan, I. Pavley? Pavley, I. Roth? Roth, I. Stone?
No.
Stone, no. Wolk? Wolk, I.
Probably. The vote is 11-4. The measure passes to the floor.